Last year for spring break, I decided to take a solo trip down to Utah and visit some of their national parks. And by that I mean all of them. Now, couple questions. Wait, spring break? It's
March.
Yes, I've been putting off this video for a while, but I figured I should probably eventually do something with all the video I have. But before I could get down to Utah, I was driving through Idaho. And since this is a solo trip, I decided to stop at the one place I'd always seen when driving past Pocatello, but never decided to stop by until that day. The Museum of Clean. You might be wondering, the Museum of Clean? What, they have like vacuums? And it's like, yes, that's exactly what they have, is vacuums. Anything you can think of that's dedicated to clean, they've got it. Soap, washing machines, detergent, I couldn't think of another thing. But like sanitary items, pretty much anything in a bathroom, medical equipment, underwear. They also have the world's largest janitor, which is a repurposed Paul Bunyan statue with a broom, the biggest cleaner fish I've ever seen, a bunch of sculptures made out of old cleaning parts, because, you know, recycling is part of being clean, as well as boomer comic strips that, here's the main gist of them: when wife clean, life good. When wife no clean, life bad. As you may or may not assume, this museum is mildly creationist. Might be wondering, what? How? And the answer is, I guess, clean, I don't know, purity. And we get such phrases as, from Adam to Obama. Kind of an odd little place, though. I don't know, if you're ever in Pocatello, give it a visit. It's also 4 stories tall. This thing is massive. It has no right being this big. Anyways, that night I was staying in the Salt Lake City area at a Motel 6, and I learned that Utah has hookers. I guess it makes sense that they would, but I never really thought that Utah would have hookers. Anyways, this is what happens when I turned on the light. Also, my room reeked of smoke despite asking for a non-smoking one, but hey, at least this gave me plenty of motivation to get up early in the morning and just leave. Now, I've driven through Utah a couple of times before. Now, I'd say the adventure started, like, south of the I-70. Right before I got to Moab, I was like, yeah, my trip has begun right about here. The first national park I'd be visiting was Canyonlands, specifically the Needles District, which is quite a bit further south than Moab. It's a lot more remote. You know, I drove south, I was approaching the road, and then I was like, oh shit, I should probably get some gas. So I drove to Monticello, got some gas, and then came back north, drove over to the Needles District, and I stopped by this little wall right before I went in. This little pictograph wall, it's pretty cool. Nice little stop. And then this was my first experience of Utah's national parks. Look at that, dude. Oh my goodness. Down at the Needles District, they pretty much only have like a visitor center. I stopped there for a little bit, got a map, and drove to the end of the road down here. And then I just kind of stood there and looked out over the horizon and into a canyon. And I was like, yeah. This was my first solo trip ever. And I was kind of, you know, just standing there like, yeah, I did it. I made a plan and I executed it. Now here I am standing in beautiful southern Utah. Utah, a very underrated state, by the way. Salt Lake City's kind of boring, but like, look at this. So I didn't know what to do with myself. I just kind of climbed around some rocks for a little bit. And then I went on like a hike that was nearby. It was like an hour long. It was like a little loop. It had like all these viewpoints around it. It was nice out also. Like, it was nice spring desert. It was like in the 70s Fahrenheit, low 20s, mid 20s Celsius. It was pretty nice out. I can't imagine visiting Utah in summer, because I visited Salt Lake City in summer, and that already was hot as hell. So visiting the full-blown desert, who does that? It's insane. Anyways, I got to the first viewpoint, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And then walked a little bit, saw some lizards. As you know, I love lizards. Now these rock formations over here are where the Needles District gets its name from. But then, I reached viewpoint 2. Let me tell you, viewpoint 2 points viewpoint 1 to shame. You could see everything here. And this was the moment where I was like, yeah, I don't regret doing this. This is amazing. You can see Island in the Sky, which is like the main part of the park. This big mesa, or is it a butte? I don't remember. And you can see the LaSalle Mountains and the Needles District. Really everything around in the area was seeable right here. Anyways, then I walked a little bit more, saw some more viewpoints, but honestly, nothing could compare to viewpoint 2 in my opinion. It just blew my expectations out of the water. And after that, everything was kind of a letdown. Nah, I mean, everything is still amazing, but viewpoint 2 was the highlight of the day, I would say. A weird thing about this hike, I was the only person out here. And then I walked back to the car and went to the campground I was staying at for the night. And I was like, I'm too lazy to set up a tent right now, so I car camped. And this was the last view I saw before going to bed, the sunset over the desert. Beautiful. And now it's time for day 3 in Utah. I got up early, turned my car into a fridge accidentally. Like, I knew the desert got cold at night, but it didn't hit me until it hit me. Took off early in the morning and drove down this road out of the Needles district. And I felt like the main character in a movie driving off into the sunset, or sunrise in this case. And I was like, hell yeah, dude. But it didn't really show up on the footage, so it's just, this part of the trip's just gonna be a little memory for me. Now this day, I was heading on up to Arches. You might be thinking, wow, you're kind of speeding through this. Yes, I am. I'm speeding through this quite a bit. But anyways, Arches, very busy. There's only one entrance into the park, I believe. I think there might be some more like backcountry roads, but one main entrance into the park. And it was a long-ass line. It took like half an hour to get in there. Waited here for a little bit, saw a guy go into the opposing lane of traffic, and then he probably got arrested by park rangers or something. And I went up to Arches. In Arches, you start off on like this switchback road, going up and snaking and seeing along all these viewpoints. I was like, damn, this is pretty cool. Now, I'm a sucker for a good scenic view. After stopping by a couple of other little things, I knew there was one thing I was going to see today, and that's the Delicate Arch. One of the most iconic pieces of American nature, in my opinion, is Delicate Arch. I mean, it's the one on their plate, you know? And, you know, it's quite the hike to get up to the Delicate Arch. And I think that kind of, you know, makes it a little bit more special, the fact that, I mean, you can see it from your car, but to really get up close, you gotta put in a little bit of work. It's not like the hardest hike ever, but, like, it's kind of steep. It's a bit long. So yeah, you know, after a little hike, you then reach the top, or the end, or whatever you want to call it. And this thing is, sometimes you go to, like, a tourist place, and it's like, wow, this was, not as good as I had hoped. But the Delicate Arch, I'd say, you know what? It's pretty good. It's, like, way bigger than I expected, though, so there's that. So I think the fact that you have to put in some work kind of, like, adds to the value of this. It's like, it didn't feel cheap, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense. This is the one selfie I took on the whole trip. Only proof I actually have me being there. Anyways, Arches, probably one of the most iconic national parks out there, and I think it's because the Delicate Arch, it's marketable. You know what I mean? Like, you can slap that shit on a license plate, a sticker, a shirt. Like, I feel like a lot of national parks don't have something as, like, marketable. You know what I mean? Like Canyonlands, it's hard to like summarize a canyon on a sticker. Same thing with the Grand Canyon. Like, the Grand Canyon's big. I don't know if I'm making sense right now, but like, I feel like a lot of national parks' beauty, it's hard to summarize with a thing. But Arches, it's like, yeah, that's the arch. Then I hike back down. Also on this hike, I passed by like this big family trip where they all had matching shirts. And when I say big family trip, I mean like there was grandparents and like all their children and all their children's children. Close to maybe 20 people all wearing the same Moab shirt, which just seems... why? Kind of tying into the whole, my weird little marketability rant, I feel like, since a lot of the scenery in Arches is arches and like just kind of more weird sandstone formations in general, and it's a lot more close up, I feel like it gets captured on camera a lot better, even though I kind of like Canyonlands a bit more. The coolness of Arches is easier to convey with a camera than Canyonlands. Go check out some more sandstone formations. I believe that they call these fins usually. This night I'd be staying in the nicest hotel I'd be on this trip, in Moab, across from the Domino's. Now, this is one of the defining moments of the trip for me. I saw an ad that Domino's was having a little special that's like, oh, if you go to the store and pick up your pizza, it'll be cheaper. And I'm like, oh? And so I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna order some pizzas, go and pick them up. The store is right across the street from me, so I think I would have gotten 2 large pizzas for the price of less than 1 large pizza. But then, my order took a bit long, so then they just gave me a free sausage pizza. So I got 3 large pizzas for the price of less than 1 large pizza regularly. I know they want me to feel like I gamed the system, but I feel like I did. You'll see why this was a defining moment of the trip in about a week. That night, I was just chilling, eating pizza. I was like, yeah, life is good. Anyways, the next day I was going back to Canyonlands. Canyonlands has 3 districts. The day before, I left Needles, and now I was gonna head to the Island in the Sky district, which is like the main part of the park people enter. It's pretty close to Arches, actually, and I'm surprised that Canyonlands has so much fewer visitors than Arches when they're pretty close to each other. I made sure to get up early because the place I was gonna be camping that night was a first come first serve, so I gotta make sure to get in there and reserve my spot with my bucket. The first part of Canyonlands I went to go visit is like kind of like at the end of the road. I hike down this long trail. It's like along the canyon rim, and you just like look out and see across Utah, and then you go over and then you look at the island in the sky, Big Butte or Mesa, whatever it's called. I think it's a mesa actually. I think they say it's a mesa. But yeah, walked up to this main scenic area, climbed up these rocks. It was pretty cool. Canyonlands is my favorite national park in Utah. Definitely better than Arches. That's what I was thinking at this point in the trip. I'm talking about it again, but like all this is on my phone, so maybe a better camera could capture the true like scale of Canyonlands. Because like Arches, I feel like the scale was captured pretty easily, but Canyonlands, just like, it's hard to describe. You really do need like human eyes seeing it to be like, whoa. I kind of want that to explain why I like Canyonlands a bit more than Arches. Also, with Yellowstone being kind of like the only national park I had known for a while, it was like, oh yeah, Yellowstone's huge, there's like tons of stuff to do in it. These other two, it's like, unless you're kind of doing some backcountry stuff, you know, you can see like most of a section in one day. Like Canyonlands, I think, is the biggest in Utah. I saw like all of the paved roads in like 2 days. You could probably cram it into one. It's a lot more backcountry in Utah with their parks, as far as like wanting to see everything. I guess Yellowstone also has a lot of backcountry, but I feel like Yellowstone, you could spend like a full week in like the main, near the main roads, you know? I don't know. Went and saw a lot more viewpoints, went and saw Mesa Arch, that was cool. Like Canyonlands, I'm a sucker for the big sweeping panoramic views, and Canyonlands has a ton of those. Then there's this thing called the Whale Rock, because it kind of looks like a whale, I guess, and you can actually climb on top of it, so that was neat. You know, I like getting good vantage points, and Whale Rock's pretty good vantage point. At one point, I was like the only person on top of it, so that was cool. I am the ocean man. I like the Whale Rock. Then I take a little walk, took a little walk on down. There's this thing called the Upheaval Dome, and geologists aren't quite sure what it is. It looks cool though. Could it be a meteor impact site, or like some kind of salt deposit thing? So I took a little hike to go see that. I didn't go on any like crazy long hikes this trip. That one honestly kind of exhausted me. So I was like, I don't feel like I can fit another one in this day. So I guess I'll just kind of go back to the campsite and then hang out and eat some pizza. Because, you know, I had 3 large pizzas, so, you know, I was gonna have a little bit of leftovers. The place I was staying, Willow Flat Campground, this was the view nearby, the Green River Outlook. This was just like a short walk from the campsite. I was like, yeah, this is cool. Next up was the most insane day of the trip, because it was something I had in mind when planning this out, and I was like, I bet I could do it. And that is visiting all 5 of Utah's national parks in one day. And you know what the best part about this is? I already made that video half a year ago, so you can go watch that right now if you want to. And then I'm gonna make part 3 in like a week. Go check out that part and part 3 if it's out. Thanks for watching. Give the video a like, subscribe, follow my other Ocean Man social medias in the description. I'd really appreciate it. And maybe watch another Goshen Man video where I little IRL stuff. Bye.